Hello, I'm Finola Burke from Research as a Service, and welcome to our 2022 Outlook series. Today our focus is on Gold and Copper Explorer, Canterbury Resources, ASX ticker CBY, and with us today is Managing Director Grant Craighead and my colleague Andy Williams. Thank you both for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Andy, I'm going to hand the baton to you to ask questions.
Morning, Grant. Look, I just want a big congratulations for actually getting your Briggs program completed, given from a distance what has been obviously pretty wild weather you had up there. The initial results that you put out look very, and even I would even go so far as to say strongly encouraging. And I was wondering if you give us a synopsis of where the project stands at the moment and what you're looking to achieve in the field and I guess on an evaluation basis over the rest of 2022.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Weather was suboptimal. So we lost a few weeks here and there, just the ground got hideously wet and we were getting a lot of water in the holes as well, so that added to our woes. But anyway, we got there. Just recapping, Briggs is a large porphyry system we picked up off Rio a few years ago and drilled out one of the intrusive centres, the central porphyry, on a broad pattern, and got 140 odd million tonnes of 0.3% copper, which was enough to attract a joint venture partner who's promising to spend a lot of money to earn equity in it, which is great. And the first phase of that relationship was late last year. We put an RC program, and the objective there was sort of twofold. One was to step out from the central porphyry and test other intrusive centres. We've got two intrusive centres, the northern and the southern porphyries, that seem to have the same scale potential as the central porphyry. And also within the central porphyry, we were seeing a couple of features that gave the promise of hosting a bit better grade mineralisation. So I guess the objective in the 2021 drilling was to prove a couple of concepts. One, that the other porphyry centres had attributes and grade characteristics that were comparable to the central porphyry, and two, that there was higher grade features that would be quite important, we think, in establishing favourable economics for eventual development. And I think where we've got to is, the geologists looking at the chips have seen that we've ticked both those boxes, if you like, but we're still waiting for the final assays to come back from the lab. That should happen over the next couple of weeks, and we'll sort of put some results out on the back of that, so watch that space. And that'll allow us to then commit to the 2022 program. I guess going to the latter part of your question, what does 2022 look like? I think we've seen enough in the drill chips to know the assays are going to tick the box that we want. And really the central porphyry zone covers a 500 metre strike length. But when you add in the northern and southern porphyries, the geochemical footprint at surface looks more like a couple of kilometres. And really I think we're encouraged enough by what we're seeing is we're just looking at a grid-based drilling program during 2022 to quantify the overall resource and hopefully latch on to some better grade zones that'll be the focus of early mining. So I can see something like a 6-month drill program with a couple of diamond drill rigs, drilling on sections every 100 metres across the full 2 kilometre strike length, and that should allow us a step up in the number of tonnes available at Briggs and should provide enough base data to move into a scoping study phase.
So you would expect to then be broadly on target. I think we were talking late last year of maybe being in that position to enter into that scoping study perhaps from the middle of 2022. So that's still something that could be achievable?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately the resource estimates will be a key driver, but in parallel we'll be able to do the engineering work and start sort of scaling up what what might be appropriate. We've done a little bit of preliminary metallurgy, and it's provided very encouraging results. So we'll do more detailed metallurgy. We'll start getting some of the geotechnical work done. We'll start getting some of the grinding work done to see what scale of grind and ball mill might be appropriate. What the power attributes will be required to design a plant. So we'll be able to get those engineering inputs in place in the middle of the year, and then once we get updated resource estimates, then start running the mining studies late in the year. So we'll be well advanced in the scoping study by the end of the year for sure.
I think one of the interesting things to come out of your recent quarterly and the update has been that the strike length, the potential strike length of what you're seeing at Briggs, 1,500 metres up to 2 kilometres is well, not. I think material is probably understating it, but that's a really, really significant opportunity set that could turn into something quite transformational.
Absolutely. It's a big footprint. We originally picked up the project from Rio, and what attracted them to it, amongst other things, was the scale of it. It had the potential to be a tier 1 scale project. And everything we're seeing is confirming that potential. I guess, the trick to making it economic is defining some of these better grade zones in more detail. But on top of the 2 kilometre strike length, I mean, we're running a soil sampling program. It's only about half complete, but it's sort of expanding that footprint a little bit, certainly broadening it. And there's a few areas with alluvial cover with some encouraging geophysical signatures that suggest there may be other intrusive centres masked at the surface. So, the scale potential of it is certainly very large. You can wave your arms as much as you like. So it's going to be a large low-grade system, and it's a matter of just defining enough tonnes and finding within that a sort of a starter phase, the first 5 years, that really churns out the cash flow that drives repayment of the capital of the banks and gets you over that start line, essentially.
It looks like Queensland will be your focus pretty much for 2022, and you made that interesting acquisition last year at Pinum. Wondering if you could just briefly tell us what plans you might have for that asset and boots on the ground there this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll circle back to PNG in a moment, but Pinum, when COVID hit, we thought we'd get move the weight of our properties down into Australia, where things are a little more manageable, because there's obvious challenges up in PNG with a strong vaccine hesitancy, would be an understatement of their view of life. Anyway, Pinum was an interesting one. It's a porphyry copper gold system that people had fiddled about with as a gold play, BHP Gold originally, and others since. And it's had holes poked into it 50 metres and sort of 0.23 gold and 0.23 copper. So it's a live system, but it's got a lot of transported cover and alluvial cover and deep soil there that the surface geochemical footprint's not well understood. You can see in the geophysics that we're in the right sort of area, and there's enough shallow drilling to know that it's significant. So what we're proposing is, once we get access agreements in place, go in there, do a bit of bedrock sampling, so some sort of auger or wrap, drill holes down to bedrock, so the holes might be 10 or 15 metres, and get a bit of geochemical footprint and mapping that out, which will then drive proper drill targeting, I guess. At the moment, you've had sort of a little bit ad hoc drilling done. And again, the scale of the geophysical footprint and geochemical footprint, as it's known, is big enough to be interesting, and it's in a very geographically convenient location. Only a few drive out of Brisbane, but inland enough to avoid the social challenges that can come once you get to the coast. So it's a good project, and copper projects in in, I don't know, jurisdictions that are attracted to the major mining companies are very rare. The world's shrinking. The challenges of operating outside North America and Australia are increasing, and the major companies are experiencing considerable challenges with projects, whether it be Serbia or Africa or Mongolia, whatever. There's challenges in a lot of these jurisdictions. So it's good to have a foot on Queensland, where it's still relatively friendly for mining.
Well, you did actually mention Papua New Guinea in passing, and you have the Bismarck and Cutie Range and Women projects in PNG, and with its challenges with COVID. How are you viewing that COVID situation at the moment, and what needs to happen to catalyse the acceleration of work there?
Interesting question. So, we've really been on the back foot for the last 2 years. We've done low-level programs just with our local staff, and they've worked all right and produced some reasonable results. But we're trying to ramp up now. Like we've started getting a crew together. We're getting a few people vaccinated. The overall vaccination rate in PNG is 2 or 3%, so it's immaterial. And Omicron's just dipping its toes into PNG. So our working assumption is that there's a couple of months of Omicron racing through the country, as it does everywhere in the world, and that'll keep things on a slow burn for a couple of months. But then we've got a soil sampling program planned for a Cootie Range that will kick off in April, and that's well in train now, and we've done just with our local people. But then we're dipping our toes into potentially getting a drill program started up on Manus Island in the second half of the year. We think by then Omicron will have run its course. We've got enough people in-house that are vaccinated to manage these programs. We've got plenty of rat tests available to test people who will be involved in the project to ensure that there's a reasonable safety standard on site. We've got drilling company lined up, really willing and able. So we're optimistic that we'll be able to get back into drilling in the second half of the year. And recapping Bismarck, it's a tier 1 style target. It's high risk, high reward, which is what attracted Rio Tinto to the project. And they're our partner at the moment, funding everything, which is always very pleasant. But there's a massive lithocap there that's masking some sort of intrusive, probably a porphyry copper gold system, a lot of copper leaking out into the waterways, a lot of encouraging geophysics. So we're just designing that program up at the moment, and the ability to operate there has been enhanced over the last couple of years. There's been a bit of forestry activity on Manus, and the good news out of that is there's now a road network available for us that has substantially improved logistics on site. And so we're seeing quite a manageable project that we can operate in it's not post-COVID, but it's in a manageable COVID environment. Yeah.
Well, Grant, we're looking forward to catching up with you through the course of 2022 to check on Canterbury Resources' progress. Thank you for joining us today, Grant Craighead and Andy Williams.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.